Hi everyone, it's Neill. Welcome back to the second week of planning your action research projects. And what we're going to focus on this week is what I often think, actually, in a way, is the trickiest stage, and it's certainly the most important stage, I think, which is finding a really, really good and effective action research question to work on. So, if you remember this slide from last week, we were saying this is the overall plan of everything you're going to be doing between now and the final write up. What we're focusing on is the top line. We're going to come back to ethics next week. So, what we're focusing on this week are the first two items of the top line, which are identifying a really good question and then relating that question to our values. At this point, you will need to go back and get out your professional values statement that you wrote for Module 1. You might want to reconsider it. You might have decided that you've slightly changed your mind about what your most important values are, but you need to have your most important values in front of you because you're going to need them while you're working your way through these slides. Okay, so questions. We have to remember that research starts with a question, and it's really important because it's going to give your whole project focus and direction. So if the question doesn't give you focus and direction, then your project's never going to succeed, no matter how hard you try and how much work you put into it. You're wanting to find something that you want to understand, find out, test, question, check, improve, some kind of real life practical problem relating to your teaching that you want to make headway with, something that's really important to you that you want to improve in relationship to your own teaching. And I think it's absolutely vital that you do something that's genuinely important to you, because you're going to have to put in quite a lot of work to do a good action research project. And really, you want something that, in a way, you would want to have done anyway, whether you were doing an action research project or not. And certainly something that hopefully will give you some lasting personal and professional benefit for the years to come. Now, because it's practical, and because what you're doing is you're trying to influence in some way, understand and improve an aspect of your own teaching, all action research projects at BIM have to begin with the words, how do I improve? This is going to be your title. How do I improve? And then whatever it is that you want to improve. If you're a bit stuck for ideas, there's a great book by Bob Marzano called The Art and Science of Teaching. And this generates loads of potential ideas for us because the chapters in the book all begin with the words, what will I do to? And I think for our purposes, we can translate that into and think of that as, how do I improve how I establish and communicate learning goals? So how do I improve how I establish and communicate my ILOs? How I track student progress and how I celebrate success? How do I improve how I help students effectively interact with new knowledge? So when the students are encountering something for the first time, how do I improve how I help them effectively manage that encounter with brand new information, knowledge or skills? How then, once they've encountered it for the first time, how then do I help my students practice and deepen their understanding of new knowledge and skills? And finally, once students have had a go at really engaging with the new skills and new knowledge, we want them to have some kind of critical opinion, critical take on that. So how might I help my students? How do I improve how I help my students generate and test their hypotheses about new knowledge? How do I improve how I help them come to a well-informed critical opinion about their new knowledge? How do I improve how I engage my students? How do I improve how I either establish or maintain classroom rules and procedures? Sometimes people express this in terms of, how do I improve how I balance authority and ally? It's all in the same area. You don't have to use the wording of any of these chapters from Bob Marzano's book. They're just here to generate ideas, really. How do I improve how I recognise and acknowledge adherence or lack of adherence to classroom rules and procedures? How do I improve how I establish and maintain effective relationships with my students? How do I improve how I communicate high expectations for all my students? And how do I improve how I develop effective lessons organised into a cohesive unit? And actually, there's a whole area missing here as well, isn't there, which is all about assessment and feedback. So there's loads of things you might want to improve in relationship to assessment and feedback, and in relationship to the ways in which the students interact with each other. So there's a massive world here. You can also do something quite personal. Sometimes people work on things like, how do I improve my own confidence as a teacher, or how do I improve my trustworthiness as a teacher? So you can pretty much do anything where there's a specific area of your practice that you would really like to improve. Now, quite often, It takes 2 or 3 goes to really hone the question down, because you don't want anything that's too massive. You've only got 6,000 words for this. You're only going to be doing 3 cycles of trying things out and generating data and reviewing how well it went. So you have to do something that's realistic and manageable, okay? Now here's some first drafts, first goes of people writing questions of some recent projects from the last couple of years. How do I improve my confidence in the classroom? How do I improve my use of questioning in the classroom? How do I improve peer feedback in my classes? How do I improve my learners' ability to learn? How do I improve my students' ability to make connections between modules? Now just pause for a moment at this point and think, well, what do I think about these questions? Do I think they're good action research questions, or do I not? Did you pause? Okay, let's assume you did. So I think the first 2 are fine. How do I improve my confidence in the classroom? How do I improve my use of questioning in the classroom? The person implicated in that question is me, myself, me, the teacher. These are things that I have to do. I have to improve. I can investigate whether I'm improving them or not. That's absolutely fine. I think there are potential problems with all of the other 3. How do I improve peer feedback in my classes? Well, is that what you're doing, or is that what the students are doing? Do you want the students to do better peer feedback? In which case the question is, that's the result you want to achieve. I want to see the result that my students are giving each other better feedback. The question then is, okay, what do I need to improve in order that that result might occur? I'm not saying you can't do this project, but you can't do a project which is about somebody else improving something. It's got to be something that you're improving yourself. Similarly, how do I improve my learners' ability to learn? Well, at first sight, that looks like it's something that you want your students to improve at. So you have to ask yourself the question, if that's the result I want to achieve, what is it that I need to improve in order that I can help my students achieve that result? And how do I improve my students' ability to make connections between modules? Again, that sounds like that might not be something that's entirely within your control. You do want something that is actually fully and clearly within your control. Okay? So right now, I would, at the end of this slide, pause again, have a bit of thinking time, and narrow it down. I think it's good to generate more than one option, because you can then decide mindfully between them. So go for your current top 3. How do I improve questions for yourself? You might want to come up with a short list of, people quite often do 10 or 12. You can generate all sorts of questions. Don't worry too much about getting the exact wording right now. As long as it's the right area and you've defined an area, that's fine. What quite often happens is that the question will refine itself or become a little more focused as you actually go through the project itself. That's completely normal. That's absolutely fine. So don't fetch too much over the exact wording. But top 3 questions, how do I improve? And then when you've got all 3, run them past this little checklist. So the thing you want to improve, is it actually fully in your control? It needs to be. Is it up to you to improve, or are you wanting someone else to improve? No, it needs to be up to you to improve. Being honest and without any false modesty, is there genuinely room for improvement here? Because there has to be room for improvement. It's no good sort of doing a pseudo project when it's something you're already good at. It has to be something that you're wanting to improve. And I think the really key question for each of your how do I improves is just intuitively, on a scale of 0 to 5, how important is this to you? How much do you really want to improve this thing? And I think it needs to be either a 4 or a 5. If it's a 3, you might be able to slightly refocus it or refine it to make it feel more important to you. If it's a 1 or a 2, it's probably really not worth pursuing. Okay? So at the end of this slide, pause now and then get your top 3 and then run them past the check. The next element we're then going to add in is we're going to look at those 3 in the light, your 3 kind of shortlisted candidates, as it were, in the light of your values. Because action research is not value neutral. Because we're trying to improve something, then actually in some way that is likely to relate to our values. It's something we want to make more present in the world, and we need to be consciously aware of that, because as we're doing our action research, as I said last week, one of the challenges is that we are doing the research, but we're actually also researching ourselves, because we're the person who is being researched, even at the same time as we are the person doing the research. It's a strange double thing, that. So we want to be as objective about what we're doing as possible, and one of the ways of being as objective as possible is to be really explicit here about what your values are. So the key starting point is to ask ourselves, well, actually, what are my values as a teacher? and you've already got a first draft of those from your Module 1 assignment. That's why we do it in the Module 1 assignment, because it leads into this. You can revise and change them now if you want. And then how far, give them a mark out of 10, how far are your values fully realised in your current practice? Is it patchy? You're going, well, okay, I want my teaching to be very democratic. I think it's about a 7 out of 10 across all my classes. Or you might go, oh, do you know what? It's really different in different classes. In that one, it's a 9 out of 10, but in that one, it's only a 4 out of 10. So you're trying to find areas where you feel like your values, if you improve something, what will happen is that your values will be more fully enacted in your work. And so you ask yourself, okay, where and how might I be able to realise these values more fully in my teaching this year? So this takes us back to some thinking time. We look at the values that you have. You score out of 10 how satisfied you are that your values are fully present across your professional life right now. And then we relate them back to your questions. You look at each of your questions and you say, well, that question, that action research question, that how do I improve, your top 3 how do I improves, how does each one of those relate to your values? What is it within that improvement goal that means that you're trying to make more fully present in your teaching? And you might find at this point that you can slightly reword them, because you just want to be really clear about which of my values am I trying to make more fully present through this improvement goal. And then the second values question, and these questions, by the way, are the ones which you'll be answering on the planning form that we're now working towards completing over the next few weeks, is to also say, well, okay, what makes you concerned about this right now? Why is this improvement goal something that you feel is of pressing importance for you to work on right now? Having put your goals through the filter of your values, then this is now the time to go, okay, so having thought about that, what is my single most important? How do I improve question? What's the thing I really most want to work on for my action research project? And again, just check it through. Is it in your control? Is it up to you to improve? Is there genuinely room for improvement? And on a scale of 0 to 5, how important is this to you? And really, you're looking for a 4.5 or a 5. Once you've got that, then I would say you've been through a really rigorous thinking process, and you should have a really good how do I improve question, which would be the basis of what we hope is going to be a really excellent and thoroughly worthwhile action research project.